Welcome, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. So glad you can all join. We're going to wait another minute or so to let a few more folks get on. Already so many of you. Great. Yeah, we have a pretty full house. And for a Friday in July, that's awesome. Just another sec and then we can get started. All right, well, we're just about at 100, so I think that's a really good cue to get going. I'm Julie, working at Free People and Urban Outfitters, and today I am so honored to be presenting the Mercado Global team, a partner of ours over at Free People for over 4 years at this point. Incredible nonprofit uplifting the voices and needs of Indigenous people in Guatemala through craft. And today we're entering a really important conversation that I know is very important and top of mind for all of you, which is why you're here, around best practices and collaboration and really holding up historical artisan craft and preventing appropriation and doing it in the most respectful way to celebrate Indigenous historical culture. So I really just love to pass it over to Ruth Alvarez de Golia, the fearless founder and executive director over at Mercado Global. She'll be taking us through the journey of the nonprofit with her team from Brooklyn to Guatemala. Ruth, I hand it over to you.
Julie, thank you so much. And thank you so much to all of you for having us here today. And it makes me so excited that so many members of the Urban team are joining this call. Just to share who I am, I'm Ruth Alvarez de Golia. I'm the founder and executive director of Mercado Global. And I'm really excited that on this call, we also have Lydia Garcia, who heads our operations in Guatemala, and Fernanda Jung, who is our design director. And just really excited to have this conversation with each of you. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to share a little bit about what we do for those of you who don't know us. And I'm going to share a little bit about how we've worked with the Urban family over the years. We're so grateful for your partnership. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the issue of cultural appropriation and how we see it, how our partner Artisan see it. Actually, in advance of this call, we had a really big internal conversation with our staff and our artisans to really think through how we wanted to talk about this issue and what we wanted to share with you. So I'm excited to have the chance to do that. So what is Mercado Global? Mercado Global is a nonprofit that works with Indigenous women in rural Guatemala. And to give you a sense of the population we work with, 70% of the women that we work with cannot read and write. Most never had the chance to go to school, even to kindergarten or first grade. We work in a region where most people are living on less than $2 a day. And what does that mean? That means that most little girls are not having the chance to go to school, or certainly not to beyond just a couple of years of school. If there's enough money in the family to send kids to school, often the sons are being sent, not the daughters. And it means that 2 out of 3 Indigenous kids are going to bed hungry every night. So imagine, for those of you who are parents, imagine if you couldn't feed your kids at night. And that's the reality of so many mothers and parents in the region where we work. But Mercado Global is about the idea that Indigenous women can be some of the best rural entrepreneurs in the world. They have these amazing traditional skills and craftsmanship, the weaving tradition that's been passed down for generations and generations. And what they've lacked access to is a market, to the international market. And so what we do is Mercado Global helps Indigenous women use their traditional skills to access the international market in a really exciting way. And about 80% of our sales are to majors, to big retail chains like Free People and Anthropology. And we're helping women who they may not have had the chance to go to school. They're living in situations of in a region where there's extreme racism, discrimination against women, lack of access to markets, but we're helping them change the status quo because they could access the international market and use the income to send their kids to school themselves, often for the first time. So it's really exciting. And we've been doing this for about, actually next year is going to be our 20th anniversary, which is really exciting. So how do we do this? Just to give you kind of the Cliff Notes version. In the US, Europe, and Asia, we're most known for our market access program, from seeing our products in retailers around the world. And that's a big part of what we do. One of the biggest ways we have an impact is just helping women who did not have an income stream before start to have a serious income stream that allows them to invest in their families and their communities. And to make that happen, we have an in-house design team. So we have designers from around the Americas that have moved to rural Guatemala to work directly with our artisans and our staff to develop seasonal collections that we export internationally. And we also have an in-house sales team, which works directly with retailers like you. But to make that possible, we have two other pillars to our model. And actually, most of our staff are in our first pillar, which is our community-based education program. And that's where, in many ways, what we do is we help moms send their kids to school. But even if we wanted to, we could not give up on the moms. We have to start by educating the moms, because to be able to sell to retailers like Free People and Anthropology, women need to understand how to build quality control systems in their communities, how to open their first bank account, how to manage their finances, how to manage their businesses, how to legalize their businesses. And so that's what our team does. We start with the basics. We start with self-esteem, financial literacy. We provide intensive technical training for sewing groups on sewing, for weaving groups on how to master their weaving skill and make sure it's export quality. And we accompany them all the way through that process with classes in their communities so that it's easy for them to participate. And then our third pillar is our asset development program. And that's where we believe that capital is power, and it's a power that's traditionally not been in the hands of Indigenous people. And so we see income as just the first step. We have a big emphasis on building the practice of savings, because once you have savings, now you have a buffer against your return to poverty, because otherwise the first sick child, who amongst us would not sew or sell our sewing machine if that's the only way to take your daughter to the doctor? But we don't want women to have to make that choice, because then they don't have a future income stream. So we help artisans build savings. We help them get their own floor looms and sewing machines so that they have this income stream. So that's kind of the summary version of what we do. And I'd like to now take a moment to share with you. One of the challenges we always have is that we speak a lot of language within Mercado Global, a lot of Indigenous languages and Spanish, but often our artisans and our staff that are doing on the ground work don't speak English. So we have a short video so that you can meet one of the women we work with. She's on our training team, Ilda. She's a longtime artisan, and I'd like to give her a chance to share her story with you directly.
Gracias a Mercado Global estamos logrando romper todas las barreras. Es una oportunidad que se le está dando a las mujeres indígenas sin saber leer. No están expertas en usar medidas, pero sí están expertas en manejar la máquina. Y con todos los ECAMES que se está abriendo por el apoyo de esta organización, realmente estamos haciendo impacto en las comunidades. Hay un ECAME que se estableció en Pañevar, y aunque no me crea, ver la cara de felicidad de estas mujeres diciendo, esto era mi sueño. Imagínense, esto era mi sueño. Solo que yo no tengo herramienta para poder lograr, no tenía, pero ahorita sí. Imagínense, eso para mí como trabajadora me llena de alegría, de que estamos realizando el sueño de la mujer que toda su vida llega a realizar su sueño de ser costurera. Imagínense, eso es el impacto. Y eso, por eso me gusta trabajar con Mercado Global y dar todo de mí para que estas mujeres logren sus sueños.
And just to give a little follow-up on that so that everyone kind of understands what does it look like in a community prior to partnering with Mercado Global and then 2 years after. And we have a whole system of doing social impact assessments and have a lot of metrics we track, but 3 that we're most proud of is that, first of all, in a region where most little girls are not even graduating from the 5th grade, 99% of children of school age in our partner communities are in school within 2 years of their moms partnering with us, which is really exciting. And another metric is that within 2 years, families have enough to eat. There's meat and fruit and other foods are incorporated into the diet, and we have different metrics for looking at malnutrition and food security, and that's the next place that we have a really big impact. So it's exciting, and I just wanted to share that with you. So now that you know a little bit about Mercado Global, I'd love to share some of the ways that the Urban family have partnered with us. And there's so many different ways, but I'm going to just share a couple. So one is our partnership with Free People, which we've had since 2018. And actually, Julie and Carly visited us in Guatemala, which we should have a picture of you in Guatemala here. We're so thankful to you for all the ways that you've supported us, both buying from our core collections and doing custom product. One of the things we're really good at is we have an amazing design and product development team. And for retail partners that buy at volume from us, we offer the ability to do some custom product. One of my favorites are the Christmas stockings that you see here, but lots of really great things. Also, Free People has been a big support of us around our annual Fashion Forward Gala in New York City, and has purchased tables, has your top leadership come to attend to support our work, helped us with our pre-galas, and that's been really, really exciting to have. In addition to that, in the past, we've also worked with Anthropology, and we're really excited. I think right now we're talking with all of you about ways that more staff in the Urban family can get involved in volunteering and supporting us in other ways too, which really, really excited about that as well. And actually, if you go to the Free People website right now, you can see some of the products that you're carrying with us. And one of the things I want to emphasize that's really special about the work that we do is everything is floor loomed. So everything is hand loomed by our partner artisans. And the way we work is that we help women build their own community businesses that they own, and they function as cooperatives. So when we are expanding, we work with about 1,000 artisans throughout Guatemala's highlands. And when we expand to different communities in different regions, we're helping women build their own businesses. And you can actually see here a picture of how the looming process works. It's very time intensive. It's very high skilled. It's really special. And one of the things that I personally love about the weaving process is it's very collaborative. So whereas our sewing groups, every woman has her own sewing machine, and sometimes women will bring their sewing machines together at a house or a community location if they have access to something like that. But for the weaving, women have to work together. Often it's sisters and neighbors and friends that are working together, because the weaving process is a collaborative process where multiple women are working on the loom at the same time, doing different steps, which I think is one of the really lovely things about it. And as I think about the Urban family and the partnership between your customers and the makers of products and this story of women helping women, I think the weaving process really encapsulates that and is really special. And here's a little video to show you what the weaving process looks like. And in this in this case, actually, the physical weaving of the fabric, depending on the fabric, that could be sometimes the least time-intensive step. So some of the brocades that we've done for Free People recently are very time-intensive when it comes to the actual weaving, but also organizing the yarn on the loom is a really time-intensive process. So this is just showing you one step in the process of weaving, which is really, really cool to see. And I hope more of you could come with us to Guatemala on our fashion industry leader trips in the future as well. So with that said, I'd like to just share a little bit about what some of the challenges are that our partner artisans face. So again, as I mentioned before, we're working in a region with really high rates of poverty, and it's really a life or death battle for a lot of families, and especially for the moms and the women in these communities. And so for many of these women, their traditional weaving craftsmanship is their lifeline. It's one of the few options they have for income and for hope. And it's also, you know, in a region where Indigenous women face such severe sexism and racism when they're trying to go to the bank, go to school, interact with the government in any way. One of the things that's really special about weaving is that it's full of respect. It's a heritage tradition that mothers pass on through their daughters, that grandmothers teach their granddaughters. And so there's so many reasons why weaving is almost sacred in the communities where we work and is so important and special. So with that said, today we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, what do we see in terms of how the urban family can be really supporting Indigenous women and craftsmanship, and how, you know, our thoughts about how to navigate some of the pitfalls that I think are really important to be careful about as you're working with artisans and as you're working with these types of fabrics. So, you know, first of all, the thing that I would share that we see as most important is that it's really, really, really important to never take a traditional fabric or a hand-woven fabric, and replicate it in a factory as a machine-made product, as a machine-made fabric. And there's a lot of reasons why that's just incredibly important and incredibly harmful if that's done. You know, the first is that it means that women who otherwise could be having income to feed their families don't have that income. But it's even worse than that, because what happens is that if traditional fabrics or artisan woven fabrics are available in the market as kind of knockoffs done as prints in factories in Asia, it actually takes away the other market opportunities for artisans, like completely removes it. So for example, Mercado Global, we do not sell any fabrics that are traditional designs. We always say we use traditional technique, but modern design. And the reason is because we can't sell the truly traditional fabrics for enough, both because they're time intensive, but also because unfortunately, when they're knocked off and then commonly available in the market in the US and Europe, and they're sold at a cheaper price because they were made in a factory, then we can't charge enough to pay a fair wage for when it's made authentically in a hand-woven way. So it's really, really, really important that, you know, we really believe that when working with artisan woven fabrics and designs, it's important to, if it's going to be intended to look like it's hand woven, it needs to be sourced from artisans and in a positive, empowering way. And otherwise, that it's important to design it so that it complements and merchandises with hand-woven fabrics, but not to replace or be intended to look like it's hand-woven when it's not. And that's just so incredibly, I think after talking internally with our artisans and our staff that work with our artisans, that is the single biggest message that we have that we see as being really, really, really important. And the flip side of that is that when you are sourcing hand-woven fabric, boy, it could just change everything for the women who get the chance to participate in those orders and have access to that market. And then there's two other ways that we've seen retailers and brands in the US and Europe approach this issue that I'd like to share our team's perspective on. So one is there's this idea that, okay, well, if you take a traditional design, a traditional fabric, and you somehow pay a licensing fee of some sort to that community or that Indigenous group, but then have it done in a factory elsewhere, that maybe that's okay. And we strongly disagree with that. And the reason we disagree is for a couple things. So first of all, you still have the same problem that it's not only not giving work to women and artisans in that community, but it cheapens what that work can be sold for on the international market. And there's also another issue, which is, unfortunately, one of the legacies of colonization and neocolonialism and whatever you want to call is going on, at least in Latin America today, is unfortunately there are really no institutions in Central America and in most of Latin America that truly represent Indigenous communities in a way where they could be trusted to say, hey, I have the right to speak on behalf of all the Indigenous women in our region to give you the right to license, and use this design, much less to be trusted to then equitably share whatever that licensing fee is with the actual women who have lost the chance to have that order and lost the chance to sell to that market at a fair price, because it's now being instead sold at a lower price by having it machine made somewhere else. And that's just the truth. And so anyone who tells you that they represent and have the authority to give you that licensing agreement is lying to you. And that is something we all feel very, very strongly about. The third thing I would say is that there has been a trend, and actually, without mentioning names, some of the bigger leaders in ethical fashion in the US market, have even thought that it's appropriate to use what are called kind of upcycled traditional fabrics and clothing. And, it seems maybe at the surface, this is a win-win. Hey, look, it could have a positive environmental impact if you're saving, instead of creating something new, you're saving, you're using something that's upcycled. But I would like to share with you that in real time, we see how this destroys culture in the region where we work, destroys it. Because what happens is, so a traditional wupil, the shirt, so like in these photos, you could see, those are fabrics that are made from traditional wupiles. Those are incredibly time-intensive fabrics to weave. In fact, a lot of the wupiles, the traditional shirts in rural Guatemala, usually most of them take 2 to 3 months to make. That's how time-intensive the backstrap brocading is. And so what happens is when you are buying these used wupiles, you have to think about the supply chain, and I'll tell you what the supply chain is behind that. The poorest of the poor women literally sell their shirts off their back because they have no other way to feed their family. And they sell it for nothing. They sell it for a fraction of what it cost to buy it originally. Most women only have one wupil because it's so expensive and it's the symbol of their culture. So you have to be so desperate to sell that. And then they cannot afford to buy another one. So instead what they do is they go to the Goodwill, Salvation Army, whatever they can't sell in the US. They ship down on sea freight to Guatemala, and you have pacas, you have these stores all across the country that will sell t-shirts for 50 cents. So women literally sell the shirt off their back that represents their culture, and then they have to wear a simple used American t-shirt. And that is how local culture is lost. And there is only a market for this because women are so desperate. And whatever middleman you buy those materials or products made from those goods from, they paid the women nothing for their wupil. So it also contributes to that the American consumer, the European consumer, thinking that these traditional fabrics should be cheap. So it's really, really important to not do that and to be really thoughtful about where are these fabrics coming from, how are they made? And I will say that on this call is Lydia Garcia who heads our operations. When we get to the Q&A, she could answer more questions about all of this. So I'm just sharing what our team decided we wanted to share with all of you on this call. So that said, there is a better way. And one of the things that we're so excited about, I think Free People is a great example where, when you partner with organizations like Mercado Global to find the win-wins, to source products that change the lives for Indigenous women, that respect this traditional craftsmanship, that acts to connect them to a market, to your customers that they would otherwise never be able to access. It can change lives, and there's ways to do that that are financially successful for retailers and brands. And so I'm going to now share one of our trainers who works with our weaving artisans had a few thoughts that he wanted to share with all of you. And And we actually have it done as a black screen so that it's easy to really focus on what he's saying as well. So, okay.
En 1990, todos los niños que nacieron en esa década, a principios de los 90, todavía aprendieron algunas formas de vida de sus abuelos o de sus papás.
¿Tú incluso?
Sí, la siembra, el tejido, hacer morrales, cosechar el algodón, todos. Preservar toda una identidad de todos sus orígenes, de toda una colectividad, no era individual, era colectivo, de un pueblo. Del 2000 a 2005 ya el número bajó a la mitad. 5 de cada 10 niños todavía aprendían algunas cosas de unos saberes ancestrales de sus pueblos. Del 2015 hasta ahora es muy mínimo. Ya no hay. Y es aquí donde empieza a generar ese impacto. Empiezan a perder los principios y valores culturales propios de la comunidad. Así como hice mi investigación que se llama Tejiendo nuestra identidad o nuestra vida, que explora por qué tejen en telar de cintura, ¿no? ¿Por qué tejemos? Muchas veces nosotros decimos, o los pueblos somos defensores de la vida, no defensores de la tierra. Que el tejido para mí es la universidad o el doctorado de los pueblos, antes como ahora. Yo lo pongo en ese mismo nivel. Es el doctorado porque implica temas de salud mental, temas de ginecobstetra, temas del cuidado del embarazo de un recién nacido, temas de planificación del calendario maya, del ciclo de siembra, de la parte de dimensión de la trascendencia de la muerte. El tejido es una forma de proteger la vida. El tejido es una vida en sí. Por eso es de que en la cosmopercepción maya, la abuela Ixchel es la primera mujer artista, es uno de los que creó todo el universo, todo lo que vemos ahora nosotros, de crear toda la vida. Por eso es de que en Santiago Atitlán no logras encontrar a un hombre tejiendo en telar de cintura, porque tiene una relación profunda con la abuela Ixchel, que las mujeres son los que crean vida, los que generan vida. Y es la misma razón cuando la trama que nosotros decimos en Tzutujil es Ruachkiem, es tortilla. Y cuando una mujer empieza a tejer, alimenta su tejido. Y cuando ya va progresando, va a llegar a una parte donde el tejido tiene que morir. Y hay un ritual para hacer eso, para cortar las telas. Cuando se le quita eso a la comunidad, cuando se le quitó todo eso, fue perder todo ese conocimiento sintetizado a través del tejido para las nuevas generaciones. Y es lo mismo que pasó con la agricultura. Hay diseños específicamente en textil, en huipiles específicamente, que tienen la relación directa con el calendario maya lunar, que tiene relación directa con el sistema de siembra de la milpa, que tiene una relación directa como organización comunitaria. todo eso sintetiza el tejido, el telar de cintura. Pero eso se ha ido perdiendo. Entonces,
¿por qué crees que se ha ido perdiendo?
Porque, para empezar, es una estrategia estructural, porque lleva a, es una forma de genocidio hacia las comunidades indígenas. Porque al quitarle la forma de cómo concibe la vida o la cosmopercepción a una comunidad, se queda sin raíz. Y cuando se queda sin una identidad, sin raíz, es una forma manipulable de que pueda vivir una forma de vida que yo le pueda imponer.
So that we wanted to have the chance for you to hear directly from one of our trainers who works directly with our weavers, to hear his perspective. So with that said, what I want to share is, for us, it's so exciting to have a chance to work directly with brands like the Urban Family brands, because you have such huge power to have a positive impact and to help so many women and families lift themselves out of poverty and also preserve their traditional culture. And for us, the way we see this is, it's about identifying the win-wins and partnering to identify the strategies where we can really use sourcing from artisans to have a positive social impact, while also meeting the financial goals of our retail partners. And so for us, what's worked is to have really direct conversations with our buyers and our retail partners and share, because we know we can't do everything. So I'll give you an example. We don't do apparel because we know that our partner artisans can't compete on price point with apparel in terms of doing sizing in the communities when you're sewing and the cost per yard of the fabric. So we focus on doing handbags and small leather goods and accessories, because that's where we can really compete on price point and have products that are a great value proposition for consumers. And so from our perspective, it's important. We don't need to do everything. It's like, look at where we can partner successfully. And understanding that, I think there's a couple ways that we help our retail partners really grow their businesses and meet their financial goals. So one is developing really special product that consumers love, and just the win-wins about identifying where we're partnering to source, and understanding what we are and what we aren't. So we know we're not true luxury, and we also don't do true mass market. We're kind of affordable luxury. We know the price points that we can compete at, and that's where we focus our design and the silhouettes and accessories we do. The second thing is, we know that right now, especially millennial women consumers and Gen Z, they are demanding products that have a positive social impact. They want to be connected to the maker. They want to know that they're purchasing products that are voting for a better world. And so we really partner with our retail partners to make sure that the story behind the pieces are being told through your online marketing, social media, through the photos and product descriptions on your website, where there's opportunity to do in-store events or train your sales force staff. That's really, really important. And actually, we only have one retail partner that actually measures the impact of that, which is Stitch Fix. And Stitch Fix has this metric they've developed called the Love It factor. So they measure sell-throughs, and they also measure the Love It factor. The Love It factor looks at, how does their consumer feel? How does seeing that product available, being able to buy that product, how does it make their customer feel about Stitch Fix as a retailer? And what they consistently find is that the chance to buy our products, that Stitch Fix's customers report that it causes them to love Stitch Fix, to know that Stitch Fix is working with a brand like Mercado Global. And it's tricky because the industry is set up to just measure sell-throughs, right? But just wanted to share that, and again, of course, everything that urban family brand sources can't be from artisans, right? And I think it's really important and good, of course, to also source complementary products that's machine made, right? But where you're identifying the win-wins and sourcing products from artisans and telling that story well, it should help your brand build consumer loyalty, build your business. I think it's a real win-win. So I just wanted to share that. And again, and it's okay and good to talk about what is and what is not working. So for example, for us, we actually don't do backstrap loom. We only do floor loom, and that's because we just can't charge enough to pay a living wage for the backstrap loom fabric, because it's so much more time intensive than floor loom. We also know for every fabric we work with, we know exactly how many hours per yard it takes to weave it. And we know that our more time intensive brocades and fabrics, if we design them into collections, we do just little pieces of it because we know how long it takes to make. So for us, it helps us succeed to have honest conversations about what is and isn't working, so that we can more quickly find those win-wins and really build a business together for our retail partners and for our partner artisans. So with that said, I am very excited to introduce our design director, Fern, who's going to share a little bit about her thoughts in the design process.
Hi, everyone. This is Fern here. I'm really excited to be talking to you today. Thank you, Ruth, for introducing me. And I personally got super excited when the team told me about this opportunity. One of my favorite topics in the fashion industry is think about how to build better relationships between Indigenous or rural communities and businesses, brands, and corporations. And, you know, designing products that are inspired by other cultures' traditional designs is really not an easy task. And we appreciate so much coming to us and asking us for how to make this a better process. In our current societies, I believe that we are not taught from the beginning or presented to other cultures, especially the ethnic minority cultures that have different perspective in lives. And, you know, they might seem new to us, but they are very ancient cultures that have a lot of wisdom. And that's why I loved so much hearing from Diego, because it's just like this meditation practice. It's just so beautiful, everything he has to say. But, you know, although it is challenging, this is a beautiful process and you can learn a lot. And one of the things that I think we can learn a lot from it is consciousness. And I think a lot of the designers over there might be laughing a little bit because the design process is not very conscious. The design process is very intuitive. And, you know, I think this will be a beautiful moment for us to think how to bring a little bit more conscious to that process that can still be intuitive. So to dive deep into the subject and on our tips for how to better collaborate with the Indigenous designs and Indigenous communities, it is really important to learn where they come from, what are the hidden values of the patterns, of the processes and the materials. And as you heard from Diego, they are not just on the physical material, the textile itself, but they are in the worldviews these communities have. Talking from our perspective, right, the MG process, how do we design our bags and our textiles? There are three very important processes that we follow when we are creating any collection in harmony with Indigenous designs. The first one is learning and experiencing the culture we are designing with. So the design team is based here in Guatemala, and we experience it every day through interactions, friendships, food, observation, and a lot of deep communication to understand where we are stepping on. And our marketing and sales team, although they are not down here, they do come very often because it is very important for them to be able to also connect and capture this essence and the impact of the work we do. Now, the second process, which is not so much of a process, is more like a value. Respect, listen, and open, transparent communication. This is absolute, like everything we do has to come with those three values. Just like any other culture, people have different worldviews, work styles, and values. And when we are working with the artisans, we want to make sure that we are not imposing our own ways of seeing life or working. So respect for their time and their traditions and designs is really important. We want to listen deeply to them, and we want to create an environment where they feel very safe to come to us and bring any challenges, fears, joy, ideas that they might have, just like we do to them. And last thing, and going into the very practical stuff, is design in collaboration with all of our designs. They pass through the artisan's hand from idea to making the muestra. You guys, my English is failing me. Sample, from the idea to the sample. And that is not only on the fabric design, that's on the fabric, that's on the silhouette, and that's even on the details, what tassels, pom-poms, small embroidery details that we might use. And usually an inspiration that we use for our collections, they might come from traditional fabrics or from the traje, the outfit that the women's or the man use here. And we work together in the artisans community houses on their looms to create an inspired version of it. We also want to engage with the artisans, inviting them to show us their perspectives, their ideas. So we give them guidelines and we challenge them to bring the techniques they already know, but with a twist. How can you use the technique you already know, but with a new design that's not part of your culture? So there is truly no formula here for this, but here are a couple of examples that I can show to you of how Mercado Global did this in the past. So I don't know how well you can see me. I want to show you here, this is one traditional fabric from Guatemala. This technique is called haspe or ikat, and is usually used on the skirts of the women. And one way that Mercado Global has changed that or got inspired into it is with this pillow. So if you see here, the inspiration is on the technique. We are using the same technique, but it's a completely different design. And then over here, we have a huipil. Ruth was talking about it before. This is an example of a fabric that takes about 2 months to be designed and practiced. And we got a couple of inspirations here. 2 of them were on the pattern. So on that huipil that I showed you, there were some diamonds, and we recreated this diamond in a new shape, still using it on the loom. They created this pattern. And we also got inspired here by the texture. So that huipil has some slight bumps, and we recreated that texture with a new pattern here. So those are a couple of examples of how Mercado Global get inspired by the techniques, patterns, or textures of the traditional designs. And now I want to bring you Diego's voice back, and he will talk a little bit about his perspective on how to avoid cultural appropriations on your designs.
And I'm going to just jump in here because we've been so excited to talk to all of you that we're going a little over. So we're actually going to send the team a link to Diego's video with his thoughts as a follow-up, and just move in because I want to make sure that we don't miss time for Q&A. I'm really excited to have the chance to hear from each of you and have a conversation together. So before we get there, I'd just like to kind of recap a couple of suggestions that we have for, how can the urban family maximize how you're using your market share and your supply chain and purchasing power to have the maximum positive impact, and also finding the win-wins and really building your business successfully. So first is, we can't emphasize the importance enough of vetting your vendors. Unfortunately, there are a lot of brands out there that we call it pink washing, where they say, it's artisan made, but you dig beneath the surface and maybe it's made under exploitative conditions. Just being artisan made, unfortunately, is not enough. It's important to take the time to get to know who your vendors are and how they work. Second, wherever you can, when working with artisans, it's really important to do down payments for orders. Lack of access to capital is one of the biggest barriers that artisans usually have for accessing the international market. So even for us, we pay our artisans at any given time. We're financing 4 to 5 months of shipments for our partner artisans. We buy all the materials up front and give it to them, and we pay artisans before we're paid by clients. And so where you have opportunities to have special payment terms for your trusted artisan vendors, that has generally a really big impact in terms of supporting them and growing their businesses successfully and being able to scale market access successfully. Then also know where styles work with price point. And that's about having a really honest and collaborative relationship between your buying team and your vendors, or your design team and your vendors, to really share what isn't working, so that you can partner to build on the successes, and also know what isn't working. So we just focus on where the win-wins are, and where we could build the business for artisans. Another really big one is building long-term relationships. This is so important, and also comes back to the other points that, it's really important to take the time to make sure you're working with the right partners, and then invest in those relationships, not just through sharing information, but buying consistently, buying at good volume. That helps ensure you're having the maximum positive impact for artisans that are spending the time doing product development and working with you. It just helps you have a bigger impact, and I think it's the best ROI for your team as well. Then also increase storytelling. And I know this is something we're trying to figure out, how could we better help our retail partners with this? Because I know that, fashion, boy, it's like a moving target in terms of all the changes going on in the fashion industry in the last couple of years, right? And the marketing team, like all the other teams, you have so many demands on your time. But I promise that where you're able to take the time to coordinate, to look at the opportunities to do storytelling online and through social media and in other ways, like what influencer celebrity doesn't want a free trip to Guatemala to get to gather all this amazing content of your products being woven and made, and where you find the opportunity to do things like that, I promise you will have such a big return on it in terms of building brand visibility and sales. And it really helps build this model. So on our side, we're trying to make it easy to access content, video, and photos of your products being made. And we also love when your team lets us know directly what else we could do to make that easier for you. And then, of course, send your team members. It was one of the most special things to have Julie and Carly with us in Guatemala. I think they had an amazing time. And I hope that more of you come. We would love to work with more members of the Urban family and Urban family brands. And so I hope that more of you could come, and if we would love to host you. So that said, for those of you who would like to get more involved, there are a couple of ways that you could do that. Well, so first of all, before saying that, just to recap, we think that you have such a huge opportunity to further scale the impact you're having. I think within the fashion industry, the Urban family brands are known as brands where working with artisan products just makes so much sense in terms of the concept of each of your brands. So we're really excited to partner with you to help continue growing the impact that you're having. All right. So for those of you that would like to get more involved, going to the next slide, there's a couple ways you could do that. First of all, we are always looking for volunteers and mentors for our staff, especially for our staff based in Guatemala and the Indigenous women that run our operations in Guatemala. So let us know if you'd like to get involved. Those of you with a background in sales, marketing, design, merchandising, production. Actually, production is one area that's and logistics that maybe isn't as glamorous, but hugely helpful for us to have mentors and volunteers. We have an impact council for those of you that like to get involved and work with other professionals who are helping us build our model. We do insight trips for fashion industry leaders to Guatemala throughout the year. Please let us know if you'd like to get involved or if you'd like to donate. We're a nonprofit. Our training program to help us bring our model to more women is entirely donor funded. So please go ahead and become part of that. And for those of you that are in the New York area or who like an excuse to go to New York, we do our annual Fashion Forward Gala on International Women's Day every year, and we'd love to have all of you there. So with that said, thank you so much for giving us the time to speak and share our views with all of you. I wish that our partner artisans could have been the ones to speak with you, but I hope that I've done an okay job of sharing the thoughts of our greater team. And I think we have just a little bit of time left for Q&A, and Fern, our design director, and Lydia Garcia, who heads our operations in Guatemala, we're all available to answer any questions or have any conversation you'd like to have with all of us.
So what's the next step on helping, just like you said, just to make sure that I'm clear on that, because I do want to help, obviously, with supply chain and logistics as my forte. I'm super interested in helping.
Awesome. Julie, what's the best way? Should people email you and then you could introduce us to everyone, or do you want us to put our email into the chat? What would you recommend?
Yeah, we'll send an email after this and we can get everyone's information. Omar, I have yours, don't you worry. But I got so excited about our chats with the Mercado team this past week, specifically looking also for Spanish-speaking volunteers as well as non-Spanish speaking, but I know you fall into that category too, Omar. So in particular, I know that professional development piece was something we got really excited about talking to with Ryan. And just the importance of being able to share the skills that so many of us have that we don't realize are really powerful skills, like making a PowerPoint, putting ideas clearly, presenting them in front of others. But I know you have some other special skills, Omar, like the supply chain piece is massive. So we'll collect emails. We'll send out an email and then you can respond directly. We'll just capture all that information and send it to you, Ruth and team.
Perfect. Great. And we'll type our website into the to the chat too, so everyone could go directly to our website to also see more about what we do. So with that said, I don't know if anyone has any questions for us or comments or thoughts. We're just excited to have the chance to speak with all of you.
It sounds like you might also be getting some interest from upcoming insight trips. I know you just hosted one, but this is something that Mercado does all year long. Getting to Guatemala is such a special experience.
And for buyers and designers who come, we love doing working sessions with you while you're there.
Thank you so much for really introducing us to this incredible resource. We're very excited. It's absolutely beautiful and wonderful to see how much you're putting into helping these Indigenous communities. I think it's wonderful. I love the idea of incorporating parts of your incredible artistry into the product that we do. We very often mix wovens with knits, with kind of like other elements as well. And even if there's a small part of the fabric that becomes the whole of the garment, I think it could just be an amazing collaboration to work on some of those things. So I'd be really excited to work with you guys on that.
We would love to do that. And I didn't mention this, but we do, we do collaborations with brands. And actually one of our newest collaborations is with Stuart Weitzman, which I wish I could show you pictures, but I promised them I wouldn't because it launches in spring 24. But we developed fabrics with them that we ship to them, and they're making their spring summer 24 shoes and totes out of the Artisan's fabric. So we love the idea of sourcing fabric as a way to be able to be part of apparel in some way.
That would be amazing. I'm not sure how the logistical part of that would work, but I'd be very interested to talk to some of our supply chain to see if that could even.
That sounds good. We're just shipping it to their factories in Asia and Europe. So, but yeah, we could talk about that separately.
Amazing.
Did want to call out too, because I know that you and Maria will be here on Wednesday next week. So if anybody, Jenny, if you wanted to connect in person, or if there's any conversations, we could, if you want to email Julie, we could loop you into the time if Ruth and Maria, you had extra time to share with some other teams that day too.
That would be amazing, Carly. Thank you for saying that. I completely forgot. Yes, we're going to be at your offices all day next Wednesday. So please, anyone who would like to meet with us to talk about things like this, we'd love to do that. And Julie could connect you to us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
That sounds so amazing. And to hop off what everyone is saying, I want to thank Julie and everyone involved for this. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, to step outside of ourselves on a Friday when we're, boggled down with work in our day-to-day, to really understand that the industry we're a part of is so much bigger than us. And there's so much impact to be, had and actions to be taken. I feel really inspired. And a few of my fellow Voces ERG members and I were slacking on the side, and we're like, were you crying too? Because I cried. during that. I was so moved, and I just want to thank you. And I don't want to speak on behalf of my fellow leadership members in our employee resource group here, but I think we would definitely love to meet with you on Wednesday when you're here. So yeah, just want to thank you all.
Thank you, Sophia. Very grateful to you.
Sophia, you can go ahead and speak for the rest of our leadership liaison, because yes, we all felt exactly the same way, Julia. And I was actually drafting up an email. I know we talked about volunteering and having that be one of the things that Voces could definitely partner in on. I know we have a lot of interest, and I know we actually do have a lot of Spanish speakers, so that would be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I also want to just give a big shout out to the Voces ERG for creating the space also for this. This is something that the group has been very vocal about, and topics that, you know, we've never actually really addressed in such a big group at URBN. And because Voces is able to create the space, and through our partnership, this is all able to happen. So really thankful to that group.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to meeting with you in person on Wednesday, and anyone on the marketing teams or and any of the other URBN brands that would like to meet with us, please let us know.
I'll look forward to meeting you then. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jenny. All right. Well, Julie, thank you for hosting us today. And before we log up, I just would like Lydia, quizás quieres decir algo a todos, porque Lydia is, I would have loved, one day Lydia is going to become a master of English, and then she will give these discussions instead of me. But in the interim, I want you to know she's on this call. Lydia, ¿quiere hablar, decir algo a todos?
Hola a todos, buenos días. Mucho gusto en conocerlos y gracias por la oportunidad que nos dan de interactuar acerca de nuestros textiles. Creo que hay grandes desafíos, pero también grandes oportunidades para tener colaboraciones y mucho éxito. Muchas gracias a todos.
Lydia said thank you to all of you for having us here today and for all that you do. Very thankful. And for those of you who don't know, Lydia heads our operations in Guatemala. She started many years ago as an artisan, was one of our first hires, worked herself all the way up, finishing high school, college, and now she's a business leader who's built our operations in Guatemala. So to give you a sense of the type of people that are working on our team in Guatemala.
Muchísimas gracias, Lidia.
Un placer.
Thank you so much to the Mercado team. Muchísimas gracias a Lidia y a todos. So wonderful to have everyone join today, and we'll certainly get information flowing about how you can get involved, about how you can join their visit to the Navy Yard, and any other interest points to keep this beautiful partnership going and their work flourishing. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Adiós.